All right. Welcome, guys. Welcome back to the Friends of Zeus podcast. I keep forgetting the name of the show. Well, first of all, look for us on Facebook at the Friends of Zeus podcast and on the Giants Jack channel on YouTube. But you can just look up the Friends of Zeus and we pop up. We're also slowly rolling on Spotify. I got in on the beta for video on Spotify, so we can actually have like Joe Rogan does, except nobody sees ours, which is good. And that's about it. So tonight we're gonna go. It's gonna be a nerdgasm. We're gonna talk about comics, like their influence on us when we were kids. The changes over the decades. For us, it's actually decades, which is just abysmally sad. I also kind of wanted to get into like there may be one that you didn't like in the comics, but when it was reinvented in like the MCU or the DCEU, it changed your opinion of the character. For me, just to give you an idea what I'm talking about, is like Captain America. I barely read any of those, and honestly, I didn't really read a lot of Avengers. But now the characters are so much more. There's so much more depth to them, and you got to see them brought to life. And like Captain America is one of the coolest. Chris Evans owns that role. He was great. Tony Stark. I wasn't an Iron Man guy, and well, I was a little more of an Iron Man guy, and Robert Downey Jr. It was like he was born to play the role. But anyway, so I thought I'd start off at least with like my top 5, heroes and runs. I'll run through them quick. Probably my favorite is gonna be Batman, followed by Spider-Man, followed by Wolverine, and then I got to go groups and say X-Men, and somewhat of a new seed. I dig the hell out of Deadpool. Like Deadpool's he's hilarious. It's breaking the fourth wall, all that. It's just great for me. What about you, Jack?
Yeah, my not runs, but my 4 favorite characters were always Batman, Spider-Man, Wolverine, and Daredevil.
Nice. I hadn't thought of Daredevil, and I don't think I mentioned Spider-Man, but yeah, I probably should have put him as my 1 seed. I probably read more Spider-Man and X-Men than anything else.
Mike, Spider-Man and X-Men had multiple titles, so I mean it was easy to get caught up in it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Mike, did you have any that I know you're not as well versed, but was there any comics that stood out for you?
I mean, the ones, so just for some context, so I was never really into comic books, but my super good buddies were. So I kind of experienced it through them. I would like read stuff here and there. I never really had to buy anything because they were all collectors and things like that. So I probably read, what I read was probably most of like the really awesome stuff because it was things that they were talking about. So I didn't really get exposed to a lot of crap, I guess. But
like Power Pack.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't even know what that is. I will say, if we're doing a show about the first thing I think of when I think of comic books, and it's not like I never read them, but Sea Monkeys, man. I mean, you gotta give a shout out to Sea Monkeys. They're like in every episode or everything.
Oh,
they're always at the end.
Yeah, and X-ray specs.
Yeah. So
yeah, that's right.
I would say, for me, and looking at doing some research on some of this stuff, just because I didn't know what the dates were and just trying to remember, but really like mid late 80s to like 85 to 95 was really the time that I got really exposed to this stuff. And that was like during high school and into college. And the first one that I really remember that wasn't like a graphic novel that I really got into was the McFarlane Spider-Man stuff. And it was just because I don't even know why he was like so revered. I mean, his art is pretty cool, right? You guys can probably tell me more than that. I don't really know, but I knew who Spider-Man was, but I really got into the McFarlane stuff. Other than that, it was like a lot of graphic novels, and I was kind of surprised because I was looking up when these were released, and they were all released within like 3 years of each other, like Dark Knight Returns, Killing Joke, Watchmen, The Crow.
Yeah, you just
Sandman.
rattled off my favorites right there.
Yeah, I mean Sandman later. X-Men. My really good friend was super into X-Men, so I read a lot of X-Men. But he also he collected some. You guys probably know more about this than I do, and I think we talked about this in another episode. But there was like this comic book called The Wrecking Crew or something, and it was about the people that came along and repaired the buildings after the superheroes smashed them. I think it was Marvel, actually.
Yeah, it was.
And I thought that was like really, I mean, that was like meta before it was meta. I thought that was like really hilarious. And the scenes that they would repair and fix were actual scenes that were destroyed in previous other comic books. So it wasn't even like they were making them up, like if something got blowed up in X-Men or whatever, they would like be there fixing it.
They kind of showed up, and if it's the same group that I'm thinking of, well, first of all, they showed up in Spider-Man, the Homecoming one, or where he fought Vulture. That was technically kind of the Wrecking Crew, but they kind of took artistic license with it. But the original ones was like these guys that got weapons made from that were like, I want to say, made with the same stuff that Thor's hammer was, so they could hold up against Thor.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
I appreciate the whole comic universe there's like Star Wars couldn't exist without comic books. I mean, the idea of creating, what's known as a universe, like a alternate place that has kind of its own rules that these characters are within, and that is unbound. I mean, obviously there's authors, there's artists that create things within the universe, but as a fan, especially as a kid, there's no real guardrails. Like you can imagine, like, well, what happens if Iron Man fought the Hawk? Like, you can go out on that thought experiment with yourself if you're a kid, which is, I think, pretty awesome. As far as Iron Man's concerned, I had no idea who Iron Man was before the first Iron Man movie. And I was like, man, they're digging deep. They're just like making movies out of, like, next time it's going to be like, Numb Nuts McGee or what, like some guy I never heard of before. Like, who's Iron Man? So was Iron Man always like a big character and I just didn't know it? Or like, what's his background? Like, was he really a big deal?
Honestly, when you saw the movies, that was a pretty true to the character portrayal.
But was he a popular, like, among comic book enthusiasts, was he a popular character, or was he kind of like a sideline guy? Like, I have no idea. I don't know.
No, I'm not sure when the Invincible Iron Man started, but it was an old comic. It had been around for a long time. And he was definitely in the Avengers when that started.
He was one of the founding members.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me get nerdy with you. It was him, Hank Pym, Captain America came later, actually. It was him, Hank Pym, Thor, and there was one other. Hulk.
Yeah.
And the Wasp, maybe?
Yeah, with Hank Pym.
Yeah, I think that was it. And back then it was
the Wasp was an Avenger? I guess so.
Cool.
Yeah.
She was pretty cool. There's a lot of, like, so to get to kind of the point of it, the one thing that I was talking about right before, because I wanted to let you guys know I wanted to kind of get into it, is, again, this was like soap operas for guys, for kids. You know what I mean? This is Days of Our Lives, but like we learned, they did, for the most part, especially back in the day, try and teach some kind of morals, like until you get to like the Killing Joke, where that kind of broke the moral barrier when he, Joker gets seriously violent, killing people, and didn't, I want to say he like raped and shot Barbara Gordon, didn't he? Or was it Clyde?
No, he shot her.
Okay.
He crippled her.
Yeah, and then he killed Jason Todd, who was one of the later Robins. Well, actually, he didn't kill him, but he thought he did. But
Right.
yeah, for me, like I can actually pinpoint the exact comic that broke me into comics, and that was Jack and I were talking about it earlier. It was a X-Men graphic novel, and it's basically mostly the first X-Men movie, which I thought was very good. Was basically based off this graphic
What?
novel in which what's
The
that?
Brotherhood?
Was it the Brotherhood?
That's the first X-Men movie.
The first X-Men movie was the Brotherhood?
Yeah, X-Men. It was the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants with Magneto.
Oh,
Based
well,
off of
yeah,
that.
the villains. Yeah, but there was that senator that was trying to put in the Registration Act for mutants and all, and that was kind of based off that graphic novel. And
Right.
it was very, very civil rights oriented.
Mhm.
Down to like at the end it was just a great novel. At the end you got this senator, it's the same guy from the movie too, and
Right.
the difference from the movie and the comic is that you got Nightcrawler, he's sitting on this stage and he just saved like a bunch of kids, I think, and this senator just points at him, calls him a monster, and he grabs a gun from somebody, he's about to shoot him. And it was very similar to if you've ever seen The Dead Zone when Martin Sheen holds the baby up to protect himself.
Yeah.
It had that kind of vibe of, so you're the monster. But that one, I was like, wow, like I learned, I really grasped something that was more than just, superpowers and all that. It was base human kind of reaction to somebody that's different. It was a really, really cool experience as far as comic books go. That's one
Yeah.
that stands out for me. Did you
Hasn't
have any like that, Jack? Oh, I'm sorry, Mike.
No, I'm just an idea. I mean, again, you guys know more about this than I do, but I mean, haven't like when you talk about the Killing Joke, I mean, when comic books like the golden age is what, like the 40s? Were they big
Silver
before
Age.
that?
I think that was like the Silver Age. I think the Golden Age was probably like
30s?
70s.
20s? Oh, okay. I mean, but when did they start? I mean, like they were around in the 30s, right?
Oh, yeah. I want to say Superman was like probably about the 30s. I don't think it
So
was any
they
earlier than that.
so they probably started with like the superhero themes and fantastic stories, and then as I think the later authors, they were probably comic book enthusiasts, and then they took the
Mhm.
type and they took the genre, and then it evolved like any other art form, right? You reference things, you turn things on their head,
Right.
you
The
know.
mythology.
Yeah, it's the mythology, and you kind of play with that. So I don't, something like the Killing Joke, which I don't remember a lot of specifics, I remember it being pretty intense.
Very dark.
But you couldn't have that at the beginning. Like if you couldn't have that in 1935 because people are like, what the hell is it? Like, because you kind of have to understand, where the character came from and what comics were about, because it kind of played with that, right? I mean, all those graphic novels kind of played with that,
Yeah.
your expectations and things like that. So I think it's it's always, I guess it's always evolving. I'm kind of out of it now. I don't know where. I can't imagine the golden age of graphic novels was the mid 80s. It's got to have been progressing since then. I'm just not on board with it.
I think the 80s and the 90s were a really key time for comics and in the evolution of comics. It's when they got to be a little darker, a little more surreal at times. I mean, I'm thinking one of my favorites from like the 80s, I want to say it's the 80s, Jack, correct me if I'm wrong, was Secret Wars with the Beyonder.
Yeah.
That was an amazingly cool run, man. Talk
Yeah,
about
that's kind of when I got sucked into it, actually, because I remember I was collecting like horror comics first.
Mhm.
There was a comic run called Twisted Tales, which was like short stories, kind of like Creepshow, the Stephen King thing.
Mhm.
And I remember I was at the comic book store, which also rented out movies and sold ice cream.
Nice.
And it's a place called the Magic Fountain in Hoboken on 3rd Street. It was the best.
Still there?
No,
Oh man.
no, I think it's condos now or something.
You had Jeppy's out there by you when you lived in Crystal City, remember?
Yeah, vaguely.
Yeah.
Vaguely.
Go
But
ahead.
this place, the owner Steve let us rent whatever movies we wanted. Horror movies, you name it. We were like teenagers walking in there, and you know, if you looked old enough, you could buy cigarettes. It was
Yeah.
it was wild.
It was like
But-
it was the every teenage Vice store.
Yeah.
You could buy weed
But,
in back.
but I remember seeing a comic book. There was a run called Marvel Team Up,
Oh, I remember those.
and it was Spider-Man and Alpha Flight. And I had never heard of Alpha Flight, but they had like a Bigfoot character on the cover named Sasquatch. And Spider-Man was wearing a black costume. And I was like, what's that about? So I picked it up, I read it, I liked it. And Marvel Team Up had different stories in it, so I thought that was cool. And then I think I bought Spider-Man, and then I started to get back issues because you get sucked into one title and the story leads you to another title, and then you realize you got to get back issues to kind of catch up, and that's how I started collecting. But that was right around Secret Wars because he had just come back to Earth. And I ended up collecting everything. Like I got sucked into Marvel. This is when Marvel was overprinting comics before they went bankrupt. Like they were doing very, very well in the mid early 80s.
Here's a question for someone that doesn't know. Like, so when you talk about buying back issues, so did comic book stores, did their back issues, were they ones that other people had sold back to the store, or did the store, could they get old stock? Like, how did that work? Like, where did they get these?
Yeah.
I think part of it was collectors sold, but I think a lot of it was, you know, they were mass printing these comics and they didn't all sell like right off the shelf. So they would bag them up, put them in cardboard backings, and they would raise the price a little bit. But I mean, when you became a collector, you weren't stopping at Secret Wars because you heard about all these X-Men stories and you heard about Spider-Man stories, and then there was something called Marvel Universe. Do you remember that, Zeus? It was like an encyclopedia.
I've got it. I bought it for my Kindle.
Yeah, and it actually has the first appearance of every character they ever made. And so then I would go on a quest and I'd be like, oh, I got to find the first appearance of this obscure character.
It
Like,
was obsessive.
So with
Yeah.
Kindles now, like, are comics published on Kindle? Like, do you still have to buy a paper copy, or does Marvel publish things
No,
electronically?
no,
You can get it all online. It's actually really great.
Wow. Okay.
So yes, Secret Wars, just to fill you in, was a really cool one, Mike. It was basically there's this godlike presence named the Beyonder, and he comes and takes all these superheroes from different planets, and he takes chunks of other planets and puts them all into this world. And he basically says, you guys got to fight it out, and whoever wins, you know, is the winner. I mean, I forget what the stakes were. And it was really cool. It's where Spider-Man got his black suit. I mean, if they did that movie, I'd be very excited about it. But that would be one hell of a fiasco.
I think they redid it recently too.
Yeah, but it's different. Secret Wars now it's this thing. It's a Nick Fury run thing.
Oh, okay.
And it's more about like a covert superhero stuff. I know way too much about this shit. But Secret Wars was a solid one. Dark Phoenix series, or the Dark Phoenix run with the X-Men, as well as when Magneto took over for a while.
Yeah, that was
as
good.
The leader of the X-Men. That was really cool. Of course, it went bad again later, but
did you guys follow authors and artists, or was it always character driven?
John Romita, Chris Claremont.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just the character, it was the creative forces behind it that would also gain
Some of
notoriety.
the
And
best runs were Chris Claremont, John Romita, John Byrne.
Yeah. John Byrne handled the writing and the art for Fantastic Four for a long time. And it was a good run. It was really good.
that's cool. I
was
didn't.
never
yeah.
a real Fantastic Four guy outside of the Thing.
No.
I love the Thing.
He got me into it. It was really good. It was very highbrow. It was very sci-fi.
Yeah.
But I kind of like that. You know, most of the guys I really liked were sort of earthbound heroes like Daredevil, Spider-Man, Wolverine, Batman. You know, they're kind of on Earth. You know, now, in fact, it's funny now with the MCU, the movies, it's going to get a lot more cosmic and trippy now. You can tell. And
I haven't disliked really anything.
no, I didn't dislike any Marvel really at all, but I would say my favorite run is probably Frank Miller's stuff. Like he was on the helm of Daredevil for a long, long time, and it was some of the best, like most adult. Like he wasn't writing for kids, and you can see that with The Dark Knight Returns and Batman Year One as well. Like those were very dark adult comics. And I remember buying The Dark Knight Returns. Like I was not a DC guy at all. I thought it was dumb. And I remember seeing that copy of #1. It was thicker. It was a glue binding. It wasn't the staples. And it cost a little bit more. And it had a harder cover. And I was like, and it had a very weird cover. Like the first issue is just like lightning with a shadow.
Yeah, wasn't there like 4 or 5 or 6? Like, I mean, I know it as the book, but it was released as parts, right?
It was 4 parts. And I couldn't get over how good it was. Like I remember even having my dad read it. I was like, I think you would like this.
Yeah, that was the first graphic novel I ever read, and I was told to read it. Like,
what's the
you
name?
have to read
What's
this.
the name of the series?
Like by my friend.
The Dark Knight Returns.
Dark Knight
Dark Knight Returns. Yeah, you know, I don't think I did that one.
Well, that sucked me into DC completely. I mean, like I was hooked. And Frank Miller did Batman Year One, but that was about it. But I found myself reading Detective Comics, Batman, and then Superman. John Byrne did the Man of Steel miniseries where they kind of revamped Superman a little bit. They made him a little weaker. They made him a little more like, fightable, which I thought made sense because I couldn't stand how powerful he was. Like I couldn't get into it.
Yeah, he couldn't like move planets anymore or
right.
But
so
the thing about the Dark Knight, not to jump in, but the thing about the Dark Knight Returns when I read it that I remember to this day that struck me as weird was Batman was old. Like he was like, I don't know, how old was he? Like middle age, like 50 or 60 or something.
I think he had like the gray streaks on the side.
And that just I was just like, that is so like that drew me in. I mean, even as a kid, I was like 20 or something, 20 something. I was like, that's so weird. Like that's so cool. But I think these guys that wrote these late 80s, early 90s graphic novels, I mean, they were writing to a fan base that had all of this other stuff already, in their head. And although other people like myself who didn't could appreciate it, I gotta imagine if you were, soaked in that stuff, it must have been even better. It must have been even more amazing.
For me, I'm sorry.
I just remember feeling like I was reading something I wasn't supposed to read. That's how I felt about it. Like I was like, I don't know, because I was reading Stephen King and horror comics and Clive Barker, and then I had my comic books. And then when I read Dark Knight Returns, the first one with Harvey Dent, I just thought, like this is for grown-ups.
Yeah.
And then you had Alan Moore did The Watchmen around the same time, which is one of the best comics ever. It's also
maybe one of the best novels. It's a novel. I mean, it's a brilliantly told story with such a twist that it's amazing. Rorschach is one of the most complex characters I've ever seen.
Yeah, and he was another grounded one. He was another earthbound Wolverine.
And really, he just had a mask.
Yeah. Well, no, I think he had powers. I think he was super strong, whatever. But
that's right.
He looked like a film noir detective. He looked like Humphrey Bogart with a mask.
And I loved how it was like he was reminiscent of the answer or the question, the character, the question. And Martian Manhunter was kind of a beyonder, really. It's more like him. But then the one guy was kind of a Batman. The other one was kind of a Wonder Woman. Like he pulled from the mythos around him and made a really great, really fantastic story. One of the ones, I mean, like Asmodeus was very much Lex Luthor-ish. You know?
He borrowed from the tropes, but he basically turned it on its head.
Yeah, it was great. I love the beginning of that movie where they go through like the what if kind of situation of what's his name? The one guy actually shot Kennedy and all these little clever things he did. I forget the comic. Was it the comic?
The comedian.
The comedian that did all awful things in history. Just a brilliant movie. And I bought the comic when I heard the movie was coming out, and that's when I read it. So, I was very late to the game, but it was spectacucular. I always wanted to get that tattoo of the happy face with the
blood.
Yeah.
I couldn't get over how good that movie was because I was a fan of the comic from when I was a kid, and I still have all 12 of them.
The series is pretty spectacular too, on HBO.
Yeah, I thought it was okay.
Yeah, it wasn't bad.
No, it wasn't bad at all.
So something I also wanted to touch on is like, again, the funny thing is so many of the characters I didn't like then, like behind me, the Punisher, never really cared for the Punisher. But if you watch that series, the series is amazing.
Nah, the Frank Miller had it. He was a big part of Daredevil during the Frank Miller run. And then they gave Frank Miller a Punisher miniseries. And it was so popular that they had to give Punisher a series. And then and Frank Miller, like, he wasn't even doing the series anymore. And then they did Punisher War Journal, which was kind of like his memoirs, like all of his mercenary stories and whatnot. So he became hugely popular in the print, in the comics, like long before the John Bernthal.
Yeah, well, that's what I like is that all the movies sucked, but when John Bernthal took over, not even like Frank Castle like proportions, about my height, muscular, but not Frank Castle. You always pictures like 6'7" and like 380 and just all muscle. You know what I mean? But Bernthal fucking made it him.
He's a good actor.
Yeah, him and the Daredevil series was off the charts good.
Oh yeah, he was great.
They really brought me into those characters more. Like the first Daredevil, I was like, this is where comic movies are going. This is the shit. The first Daredevil.
The Daredevil, the Netflix series Daredevil, it's all based on the Frank Miller run.
It was really good. One of my favorite scenes in that, Jack, you'll probably remember because it stood out for me. There's this fight, Mike, and it's a what do they call it? A running
one take.
Yeah, it's like it's a one take.
One take or one, and like a continuous.
They call it a running something. I can't remember, but anyway, Daredevil's fighting these guys going down the stairs, and he's like kicking their asses all over the place. Like, and it's probably like 10 minutes almost, right, Jack?
They all borrow from that movie Old Boy, the Korean movie.
Yeah.
That was the first one to do that I know of.
But the hilarious thing about it, I mean, it was just so well choreographed. If it wasn't a one take, it was really well edited because it all looked so fluid. But the greatest part is at the end, he's like exhausted and he sits on the back of this guy whose ass he just kicked and just like, takes a deep breath. And then like 15 more guys come into the room and he just hands them all their asses. It's really a spectacular scene.
Yeah.
And then
I'm hoping they bring him back.
I hope it's the same guy too. He's perfect.
Yeah, he's great.
But then later on in this, I want to say it's the second season where the Punisher's introduced. There's this one scene that like got me weepy, and it's when Barenthal is talking about how he's holding like his kid after they got shot up by all these mafia guys, and he said he's just like looking like at a pile of meat, but you can see his like Adam's apple going up and down, like the reality of his sadness. You would have thought it really happened to the guy. It was
he's tremendous. He's really good in it.
Yeah, it was very.
This is a show. This is a episodic. Okay.
Yeah, Daredevil. It's on Netflix. Daredevil is 3 seasons, I believe.
And Punisher is 2, and they're both just. They're probably 5 of the best seasons of TV you can watch. If you want something you're gonna like, you can absolutely watch them and not have anything you'll dislike. Maybe the 3rd season of Daredevil was kind of shaky, but outside of that.
They had to finish up the Kingpin story.
One thing that I've noticed.
Oh my God, Vincent D'Onofrio as Kingpin was fucking amazing.
One thing I've noticed, again, as a novice, and I've talked to other people about this, the DC movies seem like the look of them seem comic booky. Like they have like a hyper reality to them. And the Marvel movies just seem like they're like a James Bond film. Like there's no playing with the medium as much as the DC ones. I mean, like a lot of the Batman movies, they're like, some of them are abstract. I mean, the weird angles, and it's very comic. Well, it's not so much shaky cam. It's like it feels like a comic book. Whereas the Marvel movies, to me, and again, as someone that's an amateur, they feel like a movie that has comic book characters in it. But like if you look at the Watchmen plays like a comic book.
Oh, it's brilliant.
The way everything is framed, but all of that stuff.
See, I agree with you to a certain point. Like I think Marvel did things better than DC, but DC did some things better than Marvel too.
I'm not saying it's better or worse.
No.
I'm just saying,
I know.
It's just the Marvel ones seem like an action sci-fi adventure movie that has comic book characters in it, whereas a lot of the DC films feel like a comic book.
Marvel kind of went with what if these guys were real and tried to make things as possible as they could be, whereas DC, I feel like they just tried to be dark all the time, and it worked. It really worked. Like a lot of people don't like the Superman series of movies that came out recently, Man of Steel, and then Justice League. And then the second, the other one,
Batman versus Superman.
Yeah, I liked all 3 of them. I hated the guy that played Lex Luthor, but outside of that, and even he was not horrific. He's not the Lex Luthor I grew up with. But like
that scene
crushed it as far as
I don't know if it was an Avengers movie or an Iron Man movie, but that scene at the end where they're all sitting at like the sub shop eating
shawarma.
Lunch,
it's the shawarma scene.
I thought that was just like complete genius. Like it felt like, I don't know. I mean, that won me over. That little snippet, I was like, this is
that
awesome.
Is a spectacular scene. It really is. I'll tell you, here's a character that I never really liked in the comics, and he blew up for me in the movies, is Hawkeye. Hawkeye, great. Jeremy Renner fucking made it a new character. He was, and I'm watching the series now, and it's good. It's real.
I was going to mention Hawkeye because, like I said, I pretty much collected every title. like it was, I got sucked in because Marvel would always do these things like Secret Wars 2, and you'd see it in the upper corner of the comic, like part of the so and so story. And there was Mutant Massacre, there was Inferno, there was Alien Invasion, and so I was like, I worked in a comic book store at one point.
Oh, really?
And any comic that had like part of the story, I was a sucker. I was like, oh, I gotta have this issue of Power Pack, like just total dork. And I remember the I totally lost my train of thought.
Well, so listen, I got to dig down into this, Jack. This is cool. So did you, when you worked at a comic book store, did they make like, hey, you got to read these? So they give you copies? Were you expected to be up on it, or was it just pure retail? Or
no, I was bagging them and I was putting them on shelves and bagging back issues and things like that. But I think I worked a couple of days a week when the shipments would come in, and it got to the point because I had a different job at the same time. Like I was getting paid in comics.
That's the way it works. Yeah.
Yeah. So because I collected everything, and I forget where the story was going, but the point is, when you're reading this stuff, you feel compelled to make sure that you know all the stuff. You know what I mean? And it was just, and that's where I think Marvel like went. They were putting out the X-Men twice a month. I mean,
they know. Yeah, they're selling it. Yeah,
there was like 3 different Spider-Man titles. Web of Spider-Man, Peter Parker, Amazing Spider-Man. Like it got to the point where I think they just they oversaturated their own market, and that's why they had to file for bankruptcy. I want to say I think it was by the mid 90s.
It's amazing because it seems like that's when everything was just running on all cylinders.
That's not even when Disney bought them, Mike. Disney only bought them recently. They just revitalized. I think, what would you say brought them back? The movies, I guess?
I'm sure.
Blade was huge. Blade was another one that like came out of the blue. And was, I mean,
but,
say what you will,
but they have that universe. I mean, when Disney bought Star Wars, and all the Star Wars fanboys were crying about it, and whatever.
Yeah, not a fan.
But what I'm saying is, Disney was looking at the universe. All of these spin-offs. I mean, the Obi-Wan. I mean, the Mandalorian. Did you ever watch Mandalorian yet, Jack?
Oh, yes, I did.
It's amazing.
What do you think? Do you like it?
That?
Do you like it?
I did like it. I thought, what did I think? I mean, like when I first started watching it, I said, okay, this is a Western, right?
Oh,
so
yeah.
I kind of liked that about it. But it got to the point where the episodic nature of it, like every story is its own, he's going to come into another town.
Yeah.
And get caught up in another adventure.
It's very much the Rifleman.
Yeah, it kind of started to lose me, but then when there were recurring characters and there was an overall arching story,
yep,
I got more into it.
But I think in and out on it, but I loved it.
I think that's what Disney bought. I think they wanted the universe. I think they saw the potential that they could create stories for decades, out of this.
And to their credit, they decided to make like canon, like it was really then when we started hearing canon and like a specific, these are good, these are bad. It's better that they left themselves a big playground, but they got rid of stuff that probably wasn't going to be great.
This Obi-Wan series is going to be very telling. It's going to be very telling. Yeah.
It's funny. My favorite action figure growing up was this dude
Princess
right
Leia.
here.
Oh yeah, Boba Fett.
They're doing a series for that too.
Yeah, see, that's why they're starting to lose me, Zeus.
Because have you gotten to where he shows up in Mandalorian? Is that season 2?
Yeah, he's in Mandalorian season 2, and now he's more of a good guy, it seems like, and now he's gonna take over Jabba the Hutt's like.
Yeah, I think they're gonna make him sinister. I think they're going for bad with him.
I know, but it just seems like I get why they're doing it. They finally got Boba Fett. Let's give him a series. We got this older actor who everybody knows was Jango Fett, and that means he's Boba Fett. Okay, cool.
He was every clone.
He was every clone.
I think I'm leaning.
But I'm not. I'm not as interested in the Boba Fett thing as I am in the Ewan McGregor series.
Yes.
I like him as an actor, and they're bringing back Darth Vader. And
Good for him, by the way, Hayden Christensen.
what else? What was he doing? Was he a barista at Starbucks? Like,
Yeah, right.
Like
well, no, like for me, I thought he was really good in, was it Revenge of the Sith? I thought he crushed it.
He had he had the look.
Yeah, and that was the best of the three, of those first three, easily, hands down.
Yeah.
And I think he developed as an actor from the first one he was into the second one, because he was something better. Like killing a whole room of Padawan was fucking, what a great scene.
Yeah, well, that's just it. I think, I mean, if we want to get into Star Wars dorkdom, we can, because why not? But I just think I've seen Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith enough to know that he's just working with better material in the third one. The second one,
yeah, absolutely.
The second one, the screenplay between him and Padme, like the love dialogue,
it's a disaster.
It's absolutely awful.
And like, okay, then we'll get back to comics, but there was
sorry, I didn't mean to derail.
No, that's all right.
To me, it's a very similar thing.
Yeah, it's the same. Yeah.
There's certain qualities about Hayden Christensen that I found he actually really nailed it, and people didn't get it. And like the whole thing between him and Padme, he had that whole whiny Luke thing going hardcore. He was. Yeah, in the second one, he totally had the whole, like, if you look back at Star Wars, as much as we love it, Luke was a whiny bitch. Even down
he had to go into town to get some power converters, man. Haven't we all been there?
Yeah.
Having to go into town to get power converters.
Who doesn't have to do that's like the teenage equivalent of having to go up to the store and get your mom's tampons for.
I'll tell you what, though, Darth Vader, and it's not like I decided this. I mean, I don't think there's any larger character in cinema, and I love all cinema, but I mean, this is a character that in however many movies he's been in, I mean, it's taken like 7 or 8 people to bring him to life. I mean, there's like 7 or 8 people that have played Darth Vader. I mean, you got Prowse, right? You got the guy at the end of Jedi. You got James Earl Jones. You got Christensen. You got the kid in Phantom Menace. You got whoever
was Donald Pleasance.
No,
it was the guy from the Michael Myers movies.
Wait, who was?
I don't know.
At the end of Return of the Jedi, the guy when he pulls off the mask, I thought it was Donald Pleasance.
No,
not Dr. Loomis.
No. Okay. Yeah, not Pleasance. And then you got the guy in Rogue One. I'm just saying, this is a character so big.
Rogue One was
no one person can even claim
to
be him. I mean, that's how huge that character is. Like, it takes 3 people to even bring him to life, you know?
I'm gonna have to say, I think the guy at the end of Rogue One was CGI.
I don't know. I don't think so. Maybe.
I mean, I think it's a guy with a sword, but there's CGI in it, obviously. I mean, yeah. You know who else was CGI at the end of Rogue One? Carrie Fisher.
That kind of blew it all up for me. It was like so good. God, we moved away from comics, but now I got.
Sorry, we got to get back. Yeah.
The greatest thing about Rogue One is I love that you're watching it and you're still thinking they're going to survive, like all the way through, and then you're like, oh fuck.
They have to die.
They're the lives that were lost to get these plans to.
You got to go.
Yeah. No, you know what? Rogue One to me seemed like it was kind of a Disney's little attempt at the Seven Samurai.
It was good. It was really good.
Interesting.
But I that's how I felt in the movie theater about it, because you had all these different characters that had to come together, and some reluctantly. But I remember walking away from Rogue One because I think that was the first sort of send-off movie. It was the first sort of one-shot.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember, like, that's the one where they have Peter Cushing in it, right? The the dead Peter Cushing
The
CGI.
digital CGI. Of
That
Peter
was really
Cushing.
good too. Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember seeing that and being kind of taken aback by it. Like I didn't know
Yeah.
how I didn't know how I felt about that. I thought that was kind of fucked up.
It was actually better than the Carrie Fisher.
Well, yeah, but the thing is they'd already done it in the film with one dead actor. And I think we still didn't expect them to do it with Princess Leia. But they certainly did. And I remember sitting there in the theater, like I actually liked this movie a lot. But that was fucked up.
Yeah, it was like, oh,
Yeah.
right? It was like, oh.
Yeah, we couldn't have
like your baby is born and you see their beautiful eyes and you look down and they got a hair lip. It was just like, oh.
Well,
so
she
bad.
just died.
Can I tell you something? And you no one believes me on this.
No, she didn't just die then. She died during
she died when Rogue One was released.
I thought she died during the third one because she was in the third movie.
No, she was that was all
She was in
old footage.
The Last Jedi.
Yeah, that's not the last movie.
When I saw Rogue One in the theater, and this is no shit, this is so weird, still gives me chills. When I was in the middle of watching Rogue One, like halfway through the movie, people started murmuring in the theater because they were getting notifications on their phone that Carrie Fisher had died.
Oh, wow.
And so when that final scene came up, people were like, I mean, she died. The news broke that she died while I was watching the movie in the theater.
Holy shit.
So bizarre. It was very strange.
Yeah, you saw it before I did.
And when that scene comes up at the end, it was just like, holy shit. Like I was sitting there like, I can't believe. Anyway, whatever.
So another death in movies that I'm going to go back to.
Jack's out now. Jack's done.
For me,
I'll be right back.
One of the ones that crushed me was when Brandon Lee died from The Crow.
Oh, yeah.
Get back to comic books.
Yeah.
That one was like, man, I was expecting so much out of that guy. And
I think a lot of people were, and he had the thing where he was super likable and he had a really good presence on film, and you can't learn that. You either have that or he had what they call star quality.
He was very zen, like a movie. We're talking movies again. I want to get back to comics. But I saw a movie before him with Dolph Lundgren called Big Trouble. It wasn't Big Trouble in Little China. It was like Showdown in Little Tokyo.
Oh,
and then he also did Rapid Fire, and he was just, you could tell he was gonna explode. Like he was just gonna be the biggest thing out there. A very Heath Ledger kind of vibe, like this is the beginning kind of thing. And that became kind of paramount with The Crow. Like you were like, this is the guy that we're gonna be seeing for the next 20 years. And then he just, a stupid accident kills him, just like his dad.
Crazy. Yeah. I mean, and just like what just happened recently, with Baldwin.
What happened
on Rust, where he shot the cinematographer and the director
by accident, right?
Yeah, well, he thought that the gun had a blank in it. So something I learned from that, which I didn't realize, because I'm like, why are there live rounds on set? And the reason is because there's certain, when they do a close-up of a revolver, or if they're loading a magazine, it has to be a real bullet, they want it to look like a real bullet. So they're around, and it's like there shouldn't even be live rounds on the set, in my opinion. But I think in The Crow, I don't think it was a live round. I think it was a blank. It was the wadding. Yeah.
The same thing happened with this guy from a show called The Voyagers, which I loved when I was a kid, where they traveled through time and they had this little device, and he was playing around and acted like he was shooting himself in the head, and it was the wadding and it killed him. But so back to comics, I really think that they may have died off if it wasn't for this surge of movies. And you can thank Blade. Did you ever see Blade with Wesley Snipes?
Oh yeah.
Brilliant movie.
Yeah.
Didn't care for
I mean, the fact that he was a vampire who was hunting vampire, like he didn't want to be a vampire and he was hunting vampires.
and he was a day walker, so he could walk around in day
Mhm.
and night, whereas the other ones couldn't. The first scene in that movie is so amazing at the rave, and it's a bloodbath. And Snipes is, for what, I think he's done some really brilliant work, but that movie was maybe one of the best comic book movies at the time.
Well, that's sort of
Yeah.
like when Interview with a Vampire came out. I mean, the whole concept around the same time, like the reluctant vampire, right? The one that I don't know if I want to live forever, and
But-
this is a big cross to bear, blah blah blah. Like, I mean, both of those were similar themed wise in that respect.
Yeah, vampires were huge at that point. I don't know what was going on.
But Blade is the one that really blew it up. And another, I always love the Ryan Reynolds trio of comic book tries, because first he does
Blade 3.
what's that?
He did Blade 3.
I actually like Blade 3 more than Blade 2.
Was he Green Lantern too?
He's a very
Yeah.
witty guy. He's got a really good comic sense. Then he did the Logan movie, which was abysmal, and they totally destroyed Deadpool. Then he does Green Lantern, and the thing I love is how he mocks his past. Like, he openly just says, "Yeah, I took some really shitty roles." Like, Green Lantern was horrible. I don't think Green Lantern will ever transfer.
Well,
over.
yeah, no, they make fun of all of that in the Deadpool movies.
I know,
right?
and all the little Logan jokes.
Mhm.
But yeah, he was meant to play. He's another one that was meant to play Deadpool. His snarky, fourth wall breaking,
Yeah.
everything. He really owns that role.
Yeah, my only issue with Deadpool, honestly, is that it's 2021 and we've only got 2 Deadpool movies.
Yeah, I'd like more.
And at this point, I don't think we're getting a third one.
Really? Why not?
Because it's been a lot of years since that second one was made.
I think the one's in the works. I thought I heard that one was in the works.
I don't think they're filming anything yet. And Ryan Reynolds is talking about retiring.
No, he's talking about taking a hiatus. I think he said for like 5 years for his kids. I don't think he's going to stop. He's making too much money.
No, I would
And
think
he owns
I'll be right back.
he owns all the rights to the Deadpool stuff, so that's his.
Yeah.
That's his baby. I think what they're going to do is he's going to come into the MCU and they're going to do like an X-Force or something like that.
Well, but you know what? Tick, tick, tick.
Yeah, he's getting older, but he does wear a mask all the time. So
I mean,
Yeah,
they
those
all are. They all are. I just think it's taking too long. Marvel, I mean, as far as Marvel movies now, they're kind of in the doldrums. They are not, their movies lately are not making money.
yeah, I think they're going to come back. I think they're just building up to something, just like they did with Iron Man. Not all those first movies were big, perfect. The second
I
Iron
know,
Man,
but they're doing a lot of B-list stuff right now, and I don't know. I'm a little concerned because Black Widow was blah, and Shang-Chi I haven't seen yet, admittedly, and I haven't seen the Eternals, but I kind of don't want to.
I have heard the fans like it, Eternals. I think they're building up like they did. Remember how, there was a
know.
time with the MCU where it felt like, where's this going? And then boom, Endgame is like one, for me, I don't know how you feel about it, but Endgame is one of the best movies ever. It's like,
Who was the director of that? Who directed Endgame?
oh boy.
Wasn't it the Russo brothers?
Yes, the Russo brothers, yeah.
So
Yeah.
here's the thing, and this happens with,
And they're gone
they're out of it.
Yeah.
at the moment.
They're probably
Well,
gonna pull Frank Miller or Joss Whedon or somebody back
But
in.
here's the thing that I think the superhero movies, and I'm saying this as someone that knows cinema, not comic books, but things have an arc, and you need the good creative people to create a good movie. And if the good creative people are like, I don't want to do a superhero movie, like if it becomes pablum, like if it becomes there's too many The market is flooded with superhero movies, and it's like not exciting, and you don't attract the creative people.
Yeah, well,
you're doomed. And
you're right. And Mike, that's the thing with the Marvel formula was that Kevin Feige would like these really good talented directors would make pitches. And he would say, okay, Taika Waititi, you want to do Thor Ragnarok. Okay. These three things have to be in your movie for the continual timeline. Just these three things. Everything else, we like your pitch, go with it. And that's how you get Thor Ragnarok. Now, I mean, I think, and I still think Spider-Man's going to be okay. I think Taika is coming back to do Thor, what is it, Love and Thunder or something like that. I think that'll be good.
That should be huge.
But I mean, at this point, I think we're all sitting there with our hands folded, waiting for Fantastic Four and waiting for X-Men. And I don't know how long that's going to take.
You know, so we're talking comic movies, so I think it still falls under what we were talking about. But the Bryan Singer X-Men, some of the newer ones, the like First Class ones, were actually really good too. But he's just a creep, so fuck it. I don't need to put money in his pocket. He's a bad person.
Yeah, I don't know how much he had to do with the second trio.
He did the second of the second ones. I don't know about was there a third one?
Yeah, Dark Phoenix.
But how about and I know we're getting the movies now, and we should continue this next week. I know some of us have to go soon, but you know, like Kick-Ass. I mean, what a great movie.
Oh yeah.
You know, and that's
also we're talking about the DC movies. I'm sorry, but the Batman trilogy of movies that Chris Nolan did are excellent movies.
They're fantastic.
One of them got an Oscar.
Yeah.
Dark Knight Returns.
Deservedly
and
so.
Christian Bale, as much as he doesn't look the part, like Ben Affleck totally looked the part. He was jacked. He was big guy. Like the thing I liked about, so Christian Bale he was great. I mean, he's just such a great actor that you believe, you know, he could say he was a tree and you'd start to lean into it.
Right.
But him and Heath Ledger was just not even comic book movies. One of the best performances ever.
Yeah, it was a good.
Let me show you a little secret or a little magic.
Yeah, it was a good representation of what the Joker's supposed to be.
But this is a good example.
Amazing.
Like, Christopher Nolan is a true artist. He's an auteur. I mean, the guy. Yeah. Everything he touches turns to gold. But he's not going to do another comic book movie anytime soon because he's done it. And so I'm saying,
have you seen Tenet?
I've seen a little bit. I haven't seen the whole thing. I'm still trying to see Dunkirk, man. And he's actually doing a new movie. What was the one he's doing now? That's coming out soon.
Who cares? I'll watch it.
Yeah, no, exactly. But what I'm saying is things are cyclical. So I think comic book movies are probably going to go for a little while, and then before they get better, and
that's fine.
Yeah,
that's what at this point, like I said, with Marvel, I'm waiting for. I mean, I'm gonna watch the stuff that's digestible, but I'm kind of waiting for Fantastic Four and for the X-Men, and I think it's gonna be a few years because there's nothing being shot. I think the next comic book movie I'm really excited about, obviously, is Spider-Man. That's in a couple of weeks.
I got to tell you,
and then also the new Batman looks
yes, it does look good. They were saying a lot of bad stuff, but I can't see how it looks bad. It looks phenomenal.
Yeah,
Pattinson looks good for the role.
Yeah, I know, but
I like the guy. I don't like all the movies he's been in, but I like the guy, and I think he's a good actor despite the Twilight. I'm just gonna pretend that never happened. But I've seen him a lot of stuff that he's good in.
It takes guts to take on that role.
Yeah.
No, I just heard there's a lot of production issues between him and the director. And...
Yeah, I heard he was a bit of a prima donna, but whatever.
So, real quick question, because I know we got into, and to get it back to comic books, and I'm just curious about this. So, do you think that the experiencing of comic books in a digital form is no issue related to having them in a paper? Is that just like not a problem at all, or do you guys see that as a? I'm just curious. I didn't know if that's like something where there's like people like, no, that's not real comics. Or
Well,
it
for
has to be a
me, I
book
used
or-
to argue about Kindle stuff and all that and say, no, I really like to hold the book in my hand. And then, you know
Me
what?
too.
I said, you know what? I don't really care that much about holding the book in my hand. It's
Okay, I'm just
brighter
curious. Yeah.
digitally. It's brighter. The colors are vivid. There's no fading. There's no
Look,
misprints.
But no
Okay.
sea monkeys, probably.
It's got to be ads.
Do they have the ads at the end of them? I don't know.
Do they have sea monkeys on Kindle?
Probably not.
Sea
Oh,
monkeys were brine shrimp. Quit dreaming. And I got to tell you, one thing that I really hope changes is, and I'm not going into my man love of Henry Cavill, but I really hope that he continues to play the role. Except that everybody that plays the role dies. Well, no, that's not true. Brandon Routh lived. His career died, but
We
But
should continue this because I'm not even in the comic books and I didn't even scratch the surface on stuff
What
I
about,
want to talk about.
Hey, Dean Cain is doing okay.
that's true. No, I just think he should do it. But did you hear that he's Cavill's going to be doing a reboot of Highlander? That I can get into. He's kind of he's a great Witcher, was great Superman. I'm interested to see how he does with
Yeah, I didn't watch The Witcher.
it's very good. It's really good. Up there with like Daredevil and
Really?
Punisher. Yeah, it's really good.
Hmm.
Anyway, yeah, I got a roll here, Jack.
Are they kicking you out?
They are kicking me out per se.
And also, I'm just throwing this out there. We have to figure out a way to do a group podcast again where the sound isn't horrible. Like we need to get our. You know what we need to do?
We need to sit at the same table and use one mic.
Let's get a hold of our technical department and get those guys working on it because we're not paying them for nothing, right?
Jack, can you talk to Tom?
You know what? It's the guys on the 6th floor. We need to get the guys on the 6th floor.
Yeah, what do they do there?
What are they even doing, man? Like
No, but they're in the basement of the science building.
they get all the perks. They get the good parking spots.
It's
We
terrible.
got to put them to
Always
work.
donuts in the kitchen. That's why I go see him.
We got to start. We're the talent. We got to start demanding better
You
accommodations.
gotta stop
here.
leaving the coffee in the pot until it burns like tar at the bottom. It stinks up the whole joint.
Just make another pot.
I'm telling you, there's times I get on this podcast, I come down into my office and none of my stuff is set up yet. Like I have to do it myself. I have to hook up the camera, log on. What is this? What are we paying these people for?
This help, we need better help. We need
Just
much
saying.
better.
Just saying.
Or perhaps we
Our
need.
contract's up for renewal in January, so we
I
should,
think my camera's blurry already.
yeah, we got to get a new one for Jack. It's ridiculous.
Are you using the one I gave you, Mike?
No, I'm using one. I think that my company gave me.
You're an
But
ingrid.
I think yours is the same one, so I can give it back.
Or we can send it to Jack.
Yeah, send me one. This is terrible.
You know what? Hey, actually, are we still recording?
Yeah.
Okay. I want to get everyone's addresses because I want to send something, but let's not do it on
And
air.
listen,
'cause-
guys, please.
So everyone will get bags of dog poop if we do it on air.
Yeah,
right?
don't do it on air. That's a good call, Mike.
Please. Do just a bunch of goofy selfies, serious face, funny face, like I said, and a short bio, just who you are, something funny about
Oh,
you.
yeah, that's
Andy's
right.
gonna do all this stuff, but we got to
I
provide.
totally forgot. No,
Didn't
I'll do that.
She said she'd do it if you guys don't, and believe me, you don't want her doing it.
No, I'll do it.
I'm blurring out here. I don't know what's going on.
You look okay. It's the smoke.
Right, put on your glasses.
All right. I think I sent a selfie. Like you guys have
A few different looks. Like just take a bunch of random pictures, real quick.
Did you send that via an email? Like, can I go back and look and see what you were asking for? It was like a bio and some selfies.
A bio and a bunch of selfies, some
I
goofy
don't-
pictures and some serious pictures. It'll take 10 minutes and she'll be able to work with it. She
Yeah,
wants
man.
to do something with us jib jabby. Have you ever seen jib jab?
Oh yeah.
So she needs a bunch of pictures of our faces. Jib jab is where it looks kind of like Philip and Terrence from South Park, where the
Yeah.
whole head.
You put your name, you put your
Oh,
face
yeah.
on
So
other
she needs
characters.
a bunch of pictures so she can work with it.
Okay.
So just, yeah, and I'll get on Jason and Tom. Jason will be the hard one. Tom will do it. Anyway, we're talking
You're
behind
gonna
the-
get on Jason, and he's gonna be
Okay.
hard. Okay.
Have you seen him in a Superman costume? One of my favorite scenes ever.
Yeah.
Okay,
And
boys, we've been on for a while. I think some people got to go.
yeah,
Zeus.
you're blurring.
Some
All
of
right,
Zeus's need to go.
Yep. All right.
All right, let's
It's
wrap
been
it up.
great. Yep. All right. Take care, guys. Good
All
seeing
right.
you, and see you next week.
Adios.
Jack, I think you owe
Adios.
us one.
Oh, you what?
An episode. You take the helm.
Yeah, okay.
All right. Cool. We'll
Cool.
talk this week.
Later, guys.